I don't really buy souvenirs for myself when I travel. I usually get them for my friends or family. Although I do buy one thing though, which is a must for me. I always buy a small flag of the country I'm visiting. It's just something I've been collecting ever since. Anyway, it's our last day here in Dublin and we're pretty much packed and ready to go to Prague. We only have a few more places to see today, and before we set out to see the first spot, we decided to go to this shop to have a light breakfast. I don't normally eat pastries or anything sweet for breakfast, but for the past few days, we've been seeing 2 or 3 of this chocolate shop throughout the city, and we're kinda curious to see if they're any good. Although this shop is known for its chocolates, and they offer many different kinds, we decided to just order the Butler's hot chocolate and a blueberry muffin instead. I think that should be enough to see if this place had good quality chocolate. Normally it's full chocolate?
Yeah, normally, yeah.
Oh wow. So after watching and asking this guy questions about how they make their hot chocolate, which by the way looked amazing, we had to take it outside the cafe because the shop didn't have any tables and it was just too small for me to film inside. This is the hot chocolate, yeah, for breakfast. Gonna try it. It's really light. Yeah, it's it doesn't, of course it tastes like chocolate, but it's very light. I thought it was gonna be heavy. It looks heavy, but it's not. Oh, not bad. I can probably drink like half of this, but not the whole thing.
You give me your hat.
It's very light. I'm so surprised it's very light. What is that?
Whipped cream?
Oh, whipped cream. Oh. Is it good?
Very, very good.
Wow. Whoa.
I think it's the best hot chocolate I've ever had.
There's a what?
I think it's the best hot chocolate I've ever had.
It's the best hot chocolate you've ever had? It's so hard to film right now because my hands are full. There's a whole bunch of people looking at me too.
That one kid by the tree.
Are you gonna try the
The blueberry?
yeah, the blueberries upside down. This is gonna be really difficult. Blueberry. I don't have my hands, it's kind of hard. I'm gonna open it with my teeth. Oh man. My wisdom tooth is starting to hurt. Oh well, what can I do? It's alright. It's your typical blueberry muffin. It's not that, you know, there's nothing special to it. Just a regular blueberry muffin. So after finishing our light breakfast on the streets of Dublin, we made our way back to the National Leprechaun Museum, and this time I made sure we're not gonna miss it again. So this is the 3rd time we're here. The first one is they're closed, the second one is we're late, and now we're here and I'm hoping that they're gonna let us film inside. But I don't know, even if we don't film, we'll probably still go because we don't have really much anything to do today. Then after this we're gonna have lunch. The National Leprechaun Museum was something we planned to see since our 2nd day here, but we've been constantly mistiming our visits. Anyway, this is a privately owned museum dedicated to Irish folklore and mythology. It claims to be the first leprechaun museum in the world, and to be honest, I had no idea what to expect coming here. I was thinking they exhibit artifacts found from leprechauns, but it couldn't be because leprechauns are just myths or fairy tales. So for about $15, I found out what this museum is all about. So the museum is a guided tour where a tour guide guides you through dark hallways and rooms while telling stories about the history of the Irish folklore. It's sort of like an interactive stage performance, if that makes any sense. Anyway, every room had its own story. This one had oversized furniture that gave an illusion of being small, and this one had visual animation just like the one we saw at the Jameson's distillery.
Now guys, head all the way around.
As the rising sun lights the inner chamber of an ancient passage tomb, lines stretch across the island, linking monuments, tombs, and mythical places.
In this room, we were asked to sit down around that pot of gold while the tour guide told us a mythical story about it.
Would you like to sit up on this bench with me? So they don't steal gold from humans like people think. They work hard for their gold. Now, the thing is, some humans don't really work hard for their money. And it was the exact same with one man. His name was Peter O'D.
As we walked through more hallways and listened to more stories of fairy tales and myths, I honestly didn't expect the museum to be like this. I guess it would have been a good idea if I read a little about this museum before coming here. I mean, it's not that bad. I just didn't expect it to be like a show. I was expecting it to be more like a typical museum. You know, I think instead of calling it the National Leprechaun Museum, they should call it the Theater of the National Leprechaun Association. Anyway, after the tour and buying a few souvenirs, we went to Temple Bar to have lunch at the restaurant we wanted to go to the night before, and we're hoping this time we'll be able to get a table. Okay, we just got out of the leprechaun thing, the museum. We walked a little bit. The museum's from the other side. This is like the Temple Bar section. And this is the restaurant we tried to get a table the night before. We weren't able to eat here because the place was full and we couldn't get a reservation. But today, I think there's not a lot of people, so we're gonna have lunch here. And because the food looks good though, so that's why we're gonna come here. Well, we decided to come back because the restaurant had great reviews and was rated as the #1 steakhouse in Dublin. And it's also one of the top restaurants in the city. Not like the night before, the place wasn't as packed, so we were able to get a nice spot next to a window, even without a reservation. Since I already had a steak the night before, I decided to get their signature burger. You know, even though it's a steakhouse, we found out that they serve fresh oysters here as well, so we ordered that too. And finally for her, she ordered the medallions of filet beef, which if I'm not mistaken is beef tenderloin or filet mignon. So we wanted to get some Guinness, but surprisingly this restaurant doesn't serve it. Instead they serve this, and according to our waiter, it's almost the same as Guinness. It does look like Guinness, but the foam is just not the same. Guinness has way thicker foam, which actually makes it look creamy. Never had this before. Tastes like Guinness. It does taste like Guinness, but it's a little bit more bitter. And the texture is not the same. It's kind of watered down. It's not thick and creamy like Guinness. So obviously these are the oysters. You know, I've tried a lot of different kinds of food in my life, but somehow I've never attempted to eat oysters. I mean, I've had fried oysters before, but not raw like this. It's not that I don't like the idea of it, it's more of that I'm afraid of what it will do to my stomach after. Anyway, I've already made up my mind and I'm going to eat my first raw oyster. I'm just glad it came with some kind of vinegar sauce and fresh lemon. The first thing I noticed is that the oyster had so much juice in the shell. I don't think I'm supposed to remove it, so I went ahead and added that vinegar sauce and a squeeze of lemon. You know, if someone knows what kind of sauce this is, please let me know. So the first thing that hit me was the cold fluid inside the shell. Then the vinegar sauce and the lemon kicked in, mixed with the soft texture of the oyster. I have to say, as my first time trying this, it was absolutely amazing. The oyster didn't have the irony or fishy taste to it. It was really fresh, and I know for sure the vinegar and lemon highlighted the flavor of the oyster. It was just perfect. You know, somehow I always knew once I try it, I was going to like raw oysters, but I didn't expect it to like it this much. I kinda understand now why people love fresh oysters so much. It's just different from any other shellfish. It has that kind of distinct flavor to it. I really like it. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm going to eat oysters all the time. Well, first of all, I wouldn't be able to afford it. But if I do get a chance to eat oysters again, you definitely won't see me passing up on it. Well, as long as I know it's fresh. After that amazing starter, now it's time for their signature burger. So this is called the FX Buckley Burger. The burger itself was a little small, but the meat patty was nice and thick, although it looked dry. It didn't even have a single drop of juice coming out of the meat. Anyway, the burger came with a cup of mayo and ketchup, and the side of fries or chips as they call it. Inside the burger, it had an onion ring, bacon, tomato, lettuce, cheese, and topped with a pickle. Now, this is her filet mignon. On the menu, it says it's a 6-ounce steak with mushrooms, shallots, spring onion mash, finished with red wine juice. I'm not sure about the spring onion mash because it looks like just the regular mashed potatoes to me. And the garnish on top, I don't know what it is, but I have to say this plate looks really good compared to my burger. I think I should have ordered this myself, but I'm stuck with this. So looking at the burger, I can't decide if I should use my hands, which I know that's how you eat a sandwich, but it's so thick and stacked up, I don't think I'd be able to fit a bite of it in my mouth. So I ended up using my knife and fork. It's okay because I wanted to see how the meat looks as I cut through it.
The sauce is good. This white sauce is really good. The beef is not juicy. It's really dry. Very disappointing. But the taste is really good. The fries is cooked in its own, cooked in, what do you call this? In beef fat. I'm gonna try the steak. Mushroom.
So first of all, the filet mignon wasn't cooked the way she wanted it, but it was seasoned perfectly. The sauce and everything that came along with it worked. The steak was actually pretty good. But about my burger, I was really disappointed with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, the quality of the meat was excellent, but the way it was cooked wasn't. You know, I've never in my life had a burger this dry. I mean, look at it. Every time I cut through it, it crumbles apart. It's such a waste because everything else about it was good. The flavor was good, the seasoning was perfect, the ingredients that came along with it worked. It's just the way the meat was cooked or prepared, it was just too dry. It's funny, as we finished off our food, the fact that this place is known for its meat, I really like the oysters the most. Now that was really amazing. Anyway, after we finished eating, we walked to this place. This is Grafton Street. It's probably the most popular shopping street in Dublin. There's actually only 2 major shopping streets in the city. This one and Henry Street, which we saw the other day. Anyway, Grafton Street is lined up with shopping stores, and most of them are high-end stores, making this street one of the most expensive shopping streets in the world. We're at Grafton Street. It's a lot of shopping centers here, but those are real people. The street was named after Henry Fitzroy, who was the first Duke of Grafton. It was developed in 1708 by the Dawson family as a residential area. After the O'Connell Bridge was built in 1794, it turned into a cross-city route, and then during the 19th century, Grafton Street was known for prostitution, and I've read that 1,500 prostitutes were working here at that time. It was also home for the famous Molly Malone statue until it was moved to Suffolk Street in 2014. Anyway, eventually Grafton Street became what it is today, which is a shopping center and a place where musicians, poets, and mime artists often perform. We walked around the streets for a few minutes, watching a few musicians perform, and then made our way to St. Anne's Church, which is down the street, right there. St. Anne's Church is located here at Dawson Street. It was built in 1720 and was completed in 1866. Although it's noted for its wood carving and stained glass windows inside the church, some notable people were also associated with this church, such as Oscar Wilde, who was baptized here, and it's also where Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula, got married, just to name a few. So this is St. Anne's Church. I'm not sure if we can go inside it, but this bus is blocking the view though. We're gonna try and go inside the church. Maybe it looks nice inside, you know. Let's go.
across the street. And there's no like candle. It's not even opening. I don't think I can go inside a church. So this is the church right here. Right next to it.
It's too bad the church was closed, but the Mansion House is the official residence of the Mayor of Dublin since 1715. It is also where the meeting of the Dáil Éireann took place in 1919 until 1922. It's a meeting that basically established an independent legislature in Ireland, which paved the way to the Irish Free State in 1922.
Then we're gonna go straight here to Stephen's Garden. Stephen's Garden is right here in front of me, but right behind me is the little museum, or the little house museum, or the little museum of Dublin. It says. I'm not sure. I think they have like miniature size houses or something in there, but we're not gonna go in there. We're gonna go straight to the garden.
I had no idea why I thought they had miniature-sized houses in there, but this museum exhibits the history of the city of Dublin during the 20th century. It shows how people lived in Dublin during that time.
Actually, I was wrong. It's not a miniature-sized museum. It actually is like a museum, like the Dublin's museum, one of the museums here in Dublin, I guess. But it's a small museum. I think that's what it means.
So this is called the St. Stephen's Garden. It's the central public park in Dublin, which was created in 1664 with about 22 acres of land. It was originally enclosed with a wall and was used only by the wealthy people back then. Eventually, in 1877, the park was opened to the public and was later used by members of the Irish Citizens Army during the Easter Rising in 1916 as a defensive position while fighting the British Army. Anyway, today the park is a popular spot, frequently visited by locals and tourists.
It's a nice park. There's a pond right here, but we're gonna go straight over there. There's another garden. I forgot what it's called, but I'm gonna research it when I get there. There's a lot of birds that are like this. I wonder what that is. It's not like a.
It's an Irish one.
I don't know what it is. Look, it's like a duck or
A swan?
I don't know. I don't think it's a swan though, but it's like a pelican or something, but with a small beak. But these guys are all over Dublin. Even in the streets, they're all over the place, looking for food and stuff. I wonder what that is. What kind of bird that is.
The park I was talking about is called the Ivy Gardens, which I thought is this. I found out that this is still Stephen's Green, which is the center part of the park. I have to say the park is nice and small, not like the Phoenix Park where you'll need some kind of transportation to get around. It's just way too big. You know, I can see why people come here to relax. It's well maintained and it feels really safe to walk around.
So we decided not to go to the garden. It's probably going to be the same. I read about it. There's really nothing about the garden. It's called Evia's Garden. I can't even say the name. But it's going to be over that side. But our next destination is going to be on that side. It's going to be the National History of Museum, or Archaeological Museum of Dublin, I think. I'll find out.
It's actually called the National Museum of Ireland. See, if I'm not mistaken, there are 4 branches of the museum, and 3 of them are here in Dublin. The one we're going to is the archaeology branch.
So this is the museum. We found out that it's actually free. There's no fee for it. I was gonna shoot the entrance, but somebody was standing in front of it. But it says free on the entrance. Let's see what's inside this place. We're gonna check out the Archaeological Museum of Ireland. Or no, the museum, the Archaeology Museum of Ireland. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Let's see. They have a cafe. I think this is it. What do you think?
There's 2 flags.
Oh, there is? What is that? That's nice. It's like a wooden bowl. It's a wheel. Look at that. That's an old wheel. What are these? I wonder what these are. It looks like grenades.
2500 BC.
Wow. This is 2500 BC. I gotta touch it then. Interesting.
The archaeology branch, as you can see, exhibits mainly Irish historical objects. It covers the history of Ireland from the Stone Age all the way to the late Middle Ages. You'll see tools, pottery, gold jewelry, and bronze weapons and objects. The museum is not that big, but it holds some very interesting and important artifacts from the past. So after a quick tour of the museum, we went to the Natural History branch, which is located right around the corner. This museum, sometimes called the Dead Zoo, showcases over 10,000 specimens from all over the world. Inside the building, you'll see 3 floors of preserved animals, birds, fish, and insects.
So we didn't spend a lot of time in the other museum, but because we want to see this museum, it's also free. It's the Natural History Museum of Ireland. Wow, it's all about animals here. Look at this. Little birds. What the hell is this? It kind of looks prehistoric, but it's actually a moose, I think. Let's see what it is. It's a deer. Oh my gosh. It's a giant Irish deer. There's another one right here. Wow, they're huge. You know what this is? It is a giant deer. An Irish giant deer. You would think it's like a moose or something. But this one is the deer that I know. I didn't know they were like big. I thought deers are small, but they're pretty big. It's a white-tailed eagle. It's pretty big. It's not a puffer fish, is it?
Oh, this is the sun.
Yeah. Man, that's a huge puffer fish. It's a sunfish. The puffer one is right down there. It's poisonous. You want to see great white shark? Isn't that a great white shark? That thing's huge. Oh, it's called basking shark. It's real. It's preserved. It's big, huh? That's crazy. I'll just zoom in on this so you can see the skin. Look at that. Oh yeah. Why is my camera doing that? This looks alien. Long fin, smooth head. Man, that lighting is kind of weird. But it says here it's over 10,000 years old. This bone right here, and you get to touch it. It feels old. It feels like an old tree. I mean, what does old feel like?
This museum seems small, but with all the animals displayed here, it felt really big. I just found out that there are 2 million items found here, and 1 million of them are just insects. It would probably take us hours to see all of them, so we decided to move on and head to the National Gallery of Ireland. This gallery houses Irish and European art. It exhibits a collection of Irish as well as Italian and Dutch paintings. The gallery started with only 112 paintings, and now it holds about 14,000 artworks that includes paintings, drawings, prints, sculptures, furniture, and more.
Right next to the Museum of the Natural History is the National Gallery of Ireland. We're not gonna go inside because we're kind of done with museums right now, or for today. We're going to the next museum, which is I don't know if it's gonna be a museum. It's probably another museum, but we're gonna go to our next stop, which is I don't know. We'll find out.
This is Oscar Wilde's house, and it's not a museum or open to the public. This house is where the world-famous playwright and novelist lived during his childhood. I've read somewhere that this house might have been an inspiration for some of his famous works, such as The Picture of Dorian Gray, An Ideal Husband, The Canterville Ghost, and many others. The house is not only historical, but it's also a great example of Georgian architecture, and it's also where Oscar Wilde's father practiced medicine. I know the house is not open to the public because it's used as an office, but I think you can get a tour through the American College Dublin if you're really interested to see what's inside.
I don't think we can go inside this door. We're not gonna go inside because I think you can't get inside. But so we're gonna go to our next stop or to our next destination. So right from Oscar Wilde's house, which is right there, right in front of me is his statue, or like his memorial.
The Oscar Wilde Memorial is one of the sculptures here in Merrion Square. I'm pretty sure the sculpture has its meaning, but it's of Oscar Wilde reclining on a large boulder facing his childhood house. If you didn't know, Oscar Wilde was a world-famous Irish poet and playwright from the late 19th century. He earned great fame and popularity during his time with the success of his plays and epigrams, as well as his novels, specifically The Picture of Dorian Gray. At the height of his success and popularity, Oscar Wilde was convicted for gross indecency and was imprisoned serving 2 years of hard labor. Sadly, after his release from prison, he went straight to France and never returned to Ireland. His health started to decline a few years after, and he eventually died at the age of 46.
It's like slipping off that rock. So this is called the Merrion Square Park. There's supposed to be like a statue here of a girl or a lady. Maybe her name is Marion, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna sit on that chair first. So I wanted to sit on that chair, but all these people just got in front of me. So I guess everybody's gonna sit on that chair, and it's probably gonna take forever. Should I still sit on that chair? Alright, I'm not gonna go sit on that chair no more.
The Merrion Square is one of the city's finest surviving squares, and the park, as you can see here, was only open to the residents of the square until the 1960s. The park contains many sculptures including the Oscar Wilde Memorial and the statue or the sculpture of the lady I was talking about. Oh, and that chair I wanted to sit on is called the Joker's chair. It's built in memory of Dermot Morgan, who was an Irish comedian. Yeah, and I found out that that statue I was talking about is not actually here. It's actually next to Oscar Wilder. Is that right? Oscar Wilde's sculpture. So I'm going back there just to take a video of that. So I think it's right here. Let's go this way. Look, they're still there. They can't get enough of that chair. Alright, so this is the sculpture I was talking about. There's nothing really special about it, I found out. But it's right next to Oscar Wilde, right there. There are just too many people here right now, but... This sculpture is actually the statue of Constance Lloyd, who was the wife of Oscar Wilde. It's basically a nude and pregnant representation of his wife.
I guess that's it. That's our whole that's our whole Dublin trip. We pretty much went everywhere on our itinerary. We did everything. Now we're gonna go back to our hotel and probably have dinner later on, and then pack our things because we're gonna go to Prague tomorrow. So yep, let's go. Yeah. Alright, going back to our hotel.
As we head back to our hotel, we decided to swing by Trinity College. We've already visited this place on our first day here, but since it's a very significant and historical landmark in Dublin, we thought we should see it for the last time. So as we made it back to our hotel and finished packing our things as we prepare for our flight to Prague the next day, we came back to Temple Bar to find a place to have dinner. Like on my last video, it was really hard finding a restaurant here in Temple Bar at night because the restaurants are packed with people, especially the good ones. So after walking around, we finally settled on a restaurant, which I have to admit we were curious to try. It's all-you-can-eat Mongolian barbecue.
So you mix your food here, you get your food.
Well, what I meant was, after you get what you want for your plate, you can add herbs and spices here, then you can choose whatever sauce you want after.
This is my plate. And this is her plate. And we're gonna have them cook it here. This guy's fast. Mine is Irish beef, and I put some squid, green peas, noodles, fried onions on top, and bean sprouts, onions, and that's it. Yeah, mushrooms. And my sauce is teriyaki. It's only teriyaki. That's my sauce. Yep. Is it good? I'm tired of beef. I think so. Maybe some soy sauce. It needs some salt. Thank you. Beer. Much better. What sauce is this? Satay sauce.
Of course, after I finished off this plate, and since it's all you can eat, I had to get some more.
This is my second plate. It's basically just squid and a lot of spices. I made sure there's a lot of spices in there. That is my third plate. I made sure the bowl is full. Oh man.
I ended up getting 2 plates at the same time because it actually takes a while to make your food and have them cook it. The restaurant had a lot of people that night, so it took some time going back and forth. After our last meal in Dublin, we headed back to our hotel and prepared for our trip the next day to Prague, which is in Czech Republic. So as far as my impression of Dublin, it's exactly how I pictured it to be. Although there were a lot of misconceptions I heard before coming here about drunk people walking around the streets of Dublin, it's actually not true. Well, at least with my experience. For me, Dublin is like any other city I've been to. In fact, I have to say it's one of the nicest cities I've been to. The locals here are very warm and friendly. Throughout our stay here, we pretty much visited or at least passed by all the major landmarks in the city. You know, after doing some research while making my videos here, it gave me a deeper appreciation of Ireland's history and all the struggles it endured as a nation. You know, the next time if I ever come back here, I'll definitely plan to see Ireland's countryside, that's for sure. Anyway, on the next video, we'll be flying off to Prague, which is going to be my second time to visit the city. And I have to say, I'm very excited because it's one of my favorite, if not my favorite cities in Europe.